And so I received him, and he mentioned to me that he was the head of a task team that had been constituted under the aegis of the head of service some time back, charged with the issue of doing biometric capture and data in order to sanitize the police pension. So of course I was happy to hear that and received him and talked to him, because I know that the biometrics has been helping us even during my past time in trying to know whether we have ghost workers, ghost pensioners, and so on. But what he recounted to me was that they had done this work, that prior to their work, the police pensions, the budget office had been paying about 1.5 billion, 1.5 billion naira per month to the police pensions office for payment of pensions, gratuities, and so on. But that the work they had done had been successful in whittling this amount down to something close to 0.5, so 1/3 of that. So that to me was very important news. But he went, because what we want to do is to make sure everywhere we can save, drive out fraud, save money for the government, and reduce the outlays from the budget office and reduce inefficiencies. I must listen to that. So I listened. He further said that that there were irregularities with the management of police pensions, which their task force had been able to fish out, and movement of accounts, which they had to of monies between accounts that they had to deal with. The minute he told me that, and the fact that there was evidence of some fraudulent activity, they had some evidence of this. My reaction was, look, as Minister of Finance, as soon as I'm told that there's a part of public monies in which things are not straightforward, my natural instinct was we must stop the activity immediately so that no more monies can move in or out. I immediately informed Mr. President of this and sought his permission to freeze the account so that no one, neither the task force, nor police pensions, nor anybody could move monies from these accounts. So I wrote to the President and got the permission to freeze these accounts so that monies would not move out belonging to government. So that was the action and I further met with the banks. I asked Mr. Mainan, he made available to me the banks that were handling these monies, and I met with the CEOs and I told them that because of this allegation of movement of monies, that no one was to be allowed to move monies from these accounts without express authorization from the Minister of Finance, and that authorization was also vested in having gone to Mr. President and presented this to him. So that was all in September of 2011. So after that, as soon as that happened, I felt that, look, maybe the best thing to do is, again with permission of Mr. President, is to ask an independent authority to look at these accounts. Of course, at that time there were a number of allegations also that monies were being moved here and there. I did talk to the then head of service, Professor Afolabi, to also apprise him of what I had heard from the task force and seek his views. But at a certain point in time, I really got confused about what was happening, and I asked the permission from Mr. President to invite an independent audit firm to really look into the police pensions. He gave that permission, and I asked KPMG to look through the police pensions and at the same time maintain the accounts frozen so that no government money would go amiss. So that is what has happened. The KPMG finished. The KPMG talked to as many people as they could who were involved, to the then head of service, to the people in the police pensions office, and to Mr. Mena and the task force, to try to garner information. And they then came with some findings. And those findings were summarized and duly submitted to Mr. President, who then asked that, sitting with the Minister of Police Affairs, with the new head of service, and myself, we take a look at these findings and try to see how we can help straighten the affairs of the Police Pensions Office financially, so that we could hand back the management of the Pensions Office back to the office. But it would not be right to hand it back without making sure that we had straightened out the things that were found to be wrong. And basically, we met with the head of service and the Minister of Police Affairs to take a look at the findings. And I'll just share with you some of these findings. They confirmed what Mr. Mena had said about the release of 1.5 billion when only 0.5 was really needed. But the demand being made for police pensions was about twice more or 3 times more than what was needed. And so that has since been corrected. They also confirmed an amount of 24 billion naira that was sitting, that had been released, I think, in 2010, and for payment of certain gratuities and so on for police pensions, that was sitting in an account that was there. It was a 24 billion naira fund. And they confirmed that it was their release for that amount, and there were monies in other accounts in EcoBank, Fidelity Bank, First Bank, GTB, Sky Bank, UBA, and Unity Bank. At the time they did the work, as of 30th September 2011, all of these totaled to about 33 billion naira that was belonging to the police pensions. They confirmed that it was paid for the 24 billion was for the harmonization, payment of harmonization arrears. But it was their work showed that more may have been paid in excess of what was needed, actually up to 15 billion in excess. So more was asked for than was needed, and the balance should be returned to the Treasury. So they found out that was true. They confirmed that there seemed to be an ongoing struggle by various authorities, be it Police Pension Office, Head of Service, Task Force, in a struggle to control these accounts and movement of monies in these accounts. So I felt that freezing the thing and not allowing anyone was probably the right course of action at the time, until we could sanitize these accounts. There were too many of them, and some of them were opened. It's not clear whether they had the authorization of the Accountant General, which is what is required. And the KPMG recommended that we needed to collapse these accounts to very few, and the Accountant General, during the meeting we had, was given the mandate of looking at these accounts, making sure instead of accounts being opened in so many banks with interest being earned on them, that few accounts manageable would be then authorized going forward before we handed this thing back to the police pensions office. So the practice of successive new heads of the police pension office opening accounts in different banks and transferring monies to these accounts was something that they pointed out, which should be stopped. And so that was also one of the recommendations. And the issue of institutional weaknesses and controls in the way that the police pension accounts were being managed was also brought up. So the idea was that we should put in place a system of checks and balances before handing the control of these accounts. During this time, starting from September, we then did this to make sure that each time money was to be paid to the police pensions, it was actually signed the authorization for the police, for pensioners to be paid, and got the co-signature of the head of service. And the first one we did also was co-signed by Minister of Police Affairs, but later on for the subsequent months it was just myself and head of service to do that. We asked Mr. Mena each time to submit a list, a biometrically checked list of the pensioners who were to be entitled, and each time it came to approximately 400 and something thousand naira, 400 and something million. No, million naira, thank you. So close to the 0.5 that had been pointed out, 0.5 billion.